Alright, outlining basics for public speaking class. Um, Outlining for a speech is very similar to outlining for like a paper. Okay, so if you ever had an English class or you had to do that and like you had to write that 5 paragraph essay and you had to structure it, you have your introduction and you have your main points and you have your conclusion. That's exactly what a speech should look like. But outlining the speech is important because it's just like kind of that skeleton to kind of fill in the blanks, and then you talk through it. Okay, so let's just kind of review the basics of outlining. You should, in your text, it should go over what outlining is all about, but let's go over some of the basics real quick here. First off, you have the top. Okay, you need to kind of put this all on the top of the page, and you need to have your general purpose, your specific purpose, and your thesis. And of course, please put your name on top of the paper. And remember, always typed. When you turn in something, it should always be typed. And most students ask, why do we have to get so specific? What's with this general purpose, specific purpose, thesis? Aren't they kind of all the same thing? No. We do this to help you focus your ideas, to make sure that the ideas are clear for you. So when you actually are giving the speech, you have narrowed it down to exactly what you want to talk about. The general purpose is that just to inform, to persuade, to inspire, whatever it is. So if it's an informative speech, all you have to do is say to inform. If it's a persuasive speech, say to persuade, okay? That's the general purpose. What are you trying to get the audience? You know, to inform them, to persuade. Okay. The specific purpose is what you want your audience to learn or do as a result of your speech. I want them to blank. Okay. Now the thesis is kind of the central idea, the message of your speech. Now you're saying central purpose and the thesis. Very similar, right? Correct. They are very similar. But the thesis is worded just like you would say in your speech, whereas a specific purpose can kind of be a little bit more informal. So remember, the thesis is that general idea, the message of your speech, and this is the phrase that you will be saying in your speech, in your introduction. Okay? The thesis is what you need to make sure that you say. So if at the end of your introduction of your speech, at the very least, your audience knows exactly what you're trying to say and get across. So let's start. Introduction. You need to have 4 main things. 1, you need to have an attention getter. 2, you need to have a common ground. 3, you need to have your thesis statement. And 4, your preview of your main points. Let's start at the top. 1, attention getter. So what's that all about? Okay, attention getter. You grab them with a story, with a statistic, with an interesting fact, a testimony, anything like that could really grab their attention. A joke, perhaps. It all depends on the context. So if you're giving a very somber speech about something very, very serious, and you're going to be serious the entire time, you probably don't want to start off with a joke. Maybe a shocking statistic might be really useful. On the other hand, if you're giving a more lighthearted speech, a story, a lighthearted story might be fun, a joke. Those things might be more appropriate. So you kind of have to feel it out. The idea is it gets the audience engaged in what you're talking about. Okay. Now you can grab the audience's attention in lots of other ways, such as like clapping or jumping up and down or yelling, but that has nothing to do with what you're talking about. They're going to be thinking, wow, you got my attention, but you're crazy. And that's not really what we're going for. You get your attention, but it's also to get your attention on the topic, not just the speaker. So you have to bring them in with something, some sort of unique information, story, joke, something to get them involved in what you're actually talking about. Then you have this idea of common ground. Okay? You have to relate the topic to the audience. And it's called common ground because we all stand on it. It's a whole ground that we can share. So if you're talking about a topic and it's a little obscure, sometimes you really got to say, okay, listen, this is why you should care about it. This is why you should be paying attention. And you kind of have to at least a little bit sell the audience on why you should care about it. For a persuasive topic, that just makes sense, right? You say, okay, this is why this is important. This is why you should care. And you're kind of telling us why we need to listen to it. For an informative speech, you do have to do a little bit more to kind of be careful because you're not trying to sell them on the topic as why it's something that they should do or not do because it's informative, you're not persuading them. But you do need to say, this is why you should care about it, or at least very much listen and get information from me about it. Okay, and this is why you should care. And then, of course, you state your thesis statement, what the purpose of your speech is. And then the big one here, a lot of people forget, is you need to preview your main points, whatever they are. Okay, so you say, this is the purpose of my speech, and we're going to go this, this, and this. We're going to look at these main points. And that does an outline. It creates a little mini outline for your audience. Your audience cannot see the written outline that you've made because they don't have papers in front of them. So the preview of your main points creates this mini outline. They go, okay, we're going to do this, this, and this. Oh, great. So they have an outline in their head. Because they can't follow what you're talking about on paper, they need to hear you say it. Okay. So those are the 4 things you need in an introduction. Once you're done with your introduction, you move on to your body, the body of your speech. You transition using the use of signposts. Signposts. Okay. So my main points, if you go back to the introduction, they're here, here, and here. My 3 main points. All right. All right. First, let's talk about my first point. Okay. I say first. Oh, first. It's a signpost. This is where we're going. This is where we're at. Think of it like a stop sign or a yield sign. It tells you, it gives you information on the road when you're driving. That's exactly what signposts are in speeches. First, we're going to talk about this. Okay. And then you get into your main point. Okay. Now your main point is whatever your first point is. And then you have subpoints. Subpoints under main points are all about supporting material, supporting evidence, an argument that helps further your thing. So say your first point was you're talking about the problem in your persuasive topic. All the subpoints underneath would be things that help elaborate what is the problem, whether they're multiple problems that you're talking about or a single problem and you're explaining, giving evidence to that. So, for example, say your first main point was your problem, and your subpoints, we're talking about specific problems. There are, like, say, 3 problems that you want to talk about. There could be subpoints built off of the subpoints that offer explaining evidence, supporting material, remember statistics, facts, stories, narratives, that sort of thing. And then you transition. Now that we've talked about that, second, let's talk about the solution to this problem. Okay? Again, using signposts to transition for the audience to walk us through. You write this down in your outline because it reminds you, but it also helps the audience when you say it to follow along with your speech because they can't follow. Again, they don't have the written outline. You need to outline it to make sure that you're saying it for the audience. And then you kind of go through the main points and subpoints again and do all that. Once you finally get done with all of your speech, your body of your speech, go back down to your conclusion. In conclusion, you need 3 things. 1, review the main point. So today we looked at this, this, and this, and we've seen that blank purpose of my speech, your thesis statement. And then you need to tell the audience what they should go do. If it's a persuasive speech, you need to go out and go do something. Go revolutionize the world with what I just told you. Or informative speech. You could say, listen, now you can do whatever you want with this information. It's very interesting. I'm glad you had a chance to pay attention. Okay, so just kind of wrap it up a little bit. And it's a good idea to maybe tie it back into the attention getter, if possible, because it creates this nice symmetry. Like we opened up with this, now we're closing with this, and it tends to be like putting together. It's aesthetically pleasing. Okay, so we have the introduction, the body, the conclusion. Okay, why do we have it like this? Okay, it helps you organize your thoughts. First of all, outlines help you organize your thoughts. They can be really tedious, and I know it is, but they're tedious for a reason, because they help you organize, put everything together so you don't miss anything. Okay, and it's structured the way to make the most sense for you, but also it helps for the audience. I've been saying this over and over again. It helps. The audience can't follow your speech unless it's structured. If we listen to a lot of TED Talks, sometimes they just kind of talk, and you look back and you go, they talked about a lot of things, but I'm not sure what it is. Okay, that's really advanced speaking. Okay, really advanced because they talked about a lot of things, but sometimes it's hard to look back. Okay, what I would like you to do is to make sure that your speeches are structured so if I wanted to, or the audience wanted to, we could go back just by listening and go, these were your main points. Okay, boom, we know exactly what they are. Okay, this will help you in the future when you're not in a public speaking class to do a little more freelance, to have a little bit more leeway and kind of talk like in a TED Talk where it's not so structured. Okay, but an outline, what you need to do is help you organize your thoughts, make sure very clear, and it helps the audience follow what you are trying to say. Okay? That's why outlines are so important. You need to take a look at the sample outlines we're providing in class, a sample outline, and then also how do you work about putting the outlines from the outline format to note cards for when you speak, because that's a tricky thing. But this kindly quickly went over the outlining basics. And of course, as usual, if you have questions, feel free to ask.